This is Greg Pass with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is March the 4th, 2022. I have the pleasure to sit down in Arlington, Virginia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier with Jacob Sprosty. Did I get it right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Jacob, can you give me your full name and where you're from?
My name is Jacob Sprosty. I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi originally.
When you enlisted, were you in Mississippi at the time? Or?
I was.
Okay. And do you have any military veterans in your family?
I do. My grandfather was originally Army Air Corps before they separated into the Army Air Force. He went into the Air Force, and then my grandfather on my mother's side, or on my father's side, was in the National Guard.
And what was your motivation to enlist?
I really wanted to enlist because of their background and their history. I wasn't really the smartest kid in high school. I didn't have a whole lot going for me. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't really have any way to get through college without some type of financial help. And so the military gave me the opportunity to do that and give me on-the-job experience in fields that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Why'd you pick the Army?
I was too tall for the other jobs I wanted to do in the other branches. I wanted to do the Air Force or the Navy originally when I was younger. Too tall for ship life for the most part, and then getting into the Air Force, wanted to go be in planes, and just told me I was too tall. So
How
Army,
tall?
6'6".
That is tall.
So.
But the Army said good to go.
Yep.
Okay. So what MOS did you want to join when you came into the Army?
I originally wanted 15 Quebec air traffic controller, and I ended up with 88 Mike, which is motor transport operator.
Okay. So how old were you when you enlisted, and walk us through where you went through your training?
I signed my initial enlistment, agreed and accepted my job at 17. I left for basic training 10 days after I graduated high school at 18 years old. I went to St. Louis, Missouri, to Fort Leonard Wood for basic training and advanced individual training, which is the job training. And then after that, I got orders to South Korea. I spent a year there, got a lot of experience driving and operating fuel vehicles there, and then I put in a packet to come here to the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard.
Had you ever been here before?
I had. I came twice, once with my father and once with my high school. And I was in JROTC in high school. We did a Washington, D.C. field trip, and I came here.
Now, when you came here, did you get to see the tomb, or did you just go on the grounds, the cemetery grounds?
Nope, I did get to see the tomb. My dad really wanted me to see the tomb, so I did that. And then when we came with my high school JROTC, it was again another big experience to come here.
And what was your initial impression the first time you saw the Sentinels walking?
Wow, that's crisp. Every movement. So I was in JROTC, so we did basic Army facing movements and rifle manual. I was in the color guard, but nothing quite as slick as here and quite as professional. Even regular Army doesn't hone in these skills as much as we do as tomb guards and in the regiment, the Old Guard. So that was definitely my first impression, was wow, they look good.
All right, so you mentioned you put a packet in. What does that entail? And tell us how you got selected for the position that you're in today.
So the Old Guard operates on a volunteer system for the most part. So soldiers outside of the Old Guard have the ability to put in a packet and request assignment here. Only certain job titles are allowed here. So once they receive your packet, they go through all your information, and if they approve you, they'll put you on assignment orders here once you complete your time at the unit you're with originally. Once I got assigned here, I moved here with my wife. I was a vehicle operator for the regimental support company, conducting ceremonial missions, moving troops around different bases, preparing for inauguration mostly. I knew I wanted to come be a tomb guard as soon as I got here, and I tried from the beginning to be able to get down here, and being a tomb guard is an all-volunteer force, even more so than the Old Guard is. So once you volunteer, you go through a selection process, and I knew I wanted to go through that process.
And tell us about the process.
So the selection process is a 26-hour selection process. It goes through uniform, you'll have a uniform inspection, command interview. They'll go through your history, your biography, your PT test, your physical training tests, and just everything about you, your whole soldier outlook, and then make a decision whether or not they think that you will be a good fit for being a tomb guard. If you are accepted by that selection process, you'll go into a 2 to 4 week training cycle that we know as TDY, and that's basically you're temporarily assigned to the tomb. And you're going through training, learning the basics of being a tomb guard, uniform, outside, and knowledge. You take a test at the end of that, and if you pass that test, you will officially become a tomb guard and start full training to earn your tomb guard identification badge.
So that badge, as I understand it, there's guys that might be walking today that don't have the badge and some that do. Is that right, or am I wrong in saying that?
That is correct. So we can't train and test somebody that hasn't done it, essentially. So a part of the testing process is uniform, outside performance, and knowledge. So the only way we're going to do an outside performance test is to put somebody out there in front of thousands of people, put them under pressure, and see how they handle it. So there are people outside that will walk and they don't have their badge yet. And then there are some that have their badge. There's also a few that have passed their badge test but don't wear the badge because they haven't received their official badge orders quite yet, like myself.
So on or about, what's the average percentage of guys that are walking out there that have the badge versus the guys that don't?
We, at this current moment, are relatively heavy on badge holders. Not as many non-badge holders in the platoon right now. I would say probably about 60 to 70% of the platoon is badge holders.
And how long does it usually take to get to that point where you can get the badge?
Up to 12 months.
Gotcha.
You have 12 months to complete all training requirements.
So when did you get assigned to the platoon?
I got assigned to the platoon in September of 2020.
Gotcha. All right, so let's walk through it. As I understand it, they're not just throwing you to the wolves. You're not out there on a Saturday at noon on your first walk, right? You start at night and then you kind of gradually get in. How does that work?
Correct. So all of our training is conducted at night. That's when we'll get soldiers really good and ready. And then once we can deem that they're able to go outside for the first time, they'll start doing bolos, which is be on the lookout. So that begins an hour before the cemetery opens and 2 hours after the cemetery closes. For in the event that we have stragglers that somehow got into the cemetery early or are here late past closing. So they'll start with those bolos when there's no crowd and there's minimal stress on them. There's a couple requirements to meet as far as how many bolos you have to do before you can start earning day walks in front of the public. So it does start very slow. You'll start off with a 7 a.m. posting and then maybe get an 8, a 9, 10, and then beyond that until you're further along. About 2 o'clock is our pretty heavy time with crowds, and that's when we'll try to reserve it for people that are further along in training.
So you used the word earning, and I noticed that last week when I had the pleasure to speak to some of your colleagues. Can you explain the difference? You guys describe it as earning your time as opposed to being assigned. Walk us through what the mentality is on that.
So once you get further along in training, past your 3rd and 4th test, which is your badge test, you are on the schedule. We have a schedule posted and you're able to go outside immediately. People that are earlier on in training have to earn their walks from those that are further in training or past training. That's done through demonstrating your knowledge proficiency, executing a uniform dress drill, as well as just having overall uniform readiness and excellency. So we won't give, you have to earn your way outside to honor the unknowns. All of us did it. It's a process we all go through, and that's what we continue to pass on as a tradition and lineage.
So what does it mean for you to have the honor to stand out there and walk in front of the tomb? What does that mean to you personally?
What does it mean? It's very humbling. It's honest. It gets heartbreaking sometimes. To see groups of veterans come out in particular. A lot of veterans are very proud of being a veteran. They wear their hats, they have their vests and their shirts that say Vietnam veteran, World War II veteran. So for me, it's very, very humbling. It's very heartbreaking sometimes when you have a group of veterans that are outside and they're crying, they're praying, they're saluting even. because in the off chance that an individual that they knew or a family member that they knew during the war could be inside of one of the crypts outside if they had somebody that was unknown. And it's not just the veteran community, but it's also the general public. They have a lot of emotions when they come here too. So it's kind of not necessarily hard to hold back your own emotions, but it's hard to miss other people's.
Gotcha. So for somebody who hasn't been here before, tell us just basically how long it is that one sentinel's out there walking and what goes on. What can somebody expect to see when they come here to Arlington?
So what you can expect to see is the tomb being guarded 24 hours a day. That happens whether the public's here or not. When you walk up, chances are the soldier's going to be on the mat, walking back and forth, counting his 21 seconds and taking his 21 steps. From April 1st to October 1st, the guard change will happen every 30 minutes. And then from October 1st until April 1st during the winter time, it'll happen every hour. So throughout the time of watching the soldier out there, you might see them enter the green box that's outside. The green box is a very useful tool for us. There's a couple things in there that the soldier might need while they're on their walk, as well as a phone to call downstairs to the tomb guard quarters if anything happens with them, their uniform, anything outside that they need somebody else to come and intervene with. That direct line, they just pick it up and it calls us, and vice versa if we have to call the guard outside for any reason too.
I assume that doesn't happen that often.
It would happen a bit more than you would think. A lot of times, especially right now with changing seasons, we'll be communicating back and forth as to whether or not we need to make uniform changes. We have different uniforms based on the temperature and the weather outside. So it'll happen a lot more than you think, but a lot of people might not be here when it does happen.
So talk about weather. This is a 24/7 operation. You guys don't get grounded like pilots do, right?
No, we don't.
Tell us about some of your experiences with the weather here.
It's very sporadic, very, very sporadic. I mean, just last week we were battling 25, 30 mile an hour gusts, and it can be very hard to stand there straight up and down and not be blown around like a blade of grass. The rain, it pelting you in your face, it's very difficult. But we all have trained for it. We've all been there. We practice that type of stuff at night when the weather gets bad. When it gets cold, we have a different uniform to help us be warmer outside, as well as a raincoat when it does rain that will keep us dry.
All right, so you guys had a big anniversary last year, correct? Can you tell us about what kind of ceremonies you had here and what your role was in the ceremonies?
So at the time I was a walker. It was the 100-year anniversary of interring the World War I unknown soldier here, the creation of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. It was a very, very big moment. Originally, like I said, I was walking the mat. We had a lot of changes, a lot of different ceremonies that took place. I think one of the most notable was we had a Crow Nation. The Crow Nation tribe came out, and they were the first ones to lay a rose. We for the first time opened up the plaza to the public and let them come in and pay their own personal respects, which we do on a daily basis, but not to that extent. So we conduct wreath ceremonies. Groups can request a wreath ceremony. They provide a wreath, and then up to 4 people can go down onto the plaza with the guards, place a wreath on a stand, and honor the unknowns a little bit more that way. But this is the first time we opened it up to anybody and everybody that wanted to come lay a flower or a bouquet of flowers even for the unknowns and pay their closer respects. So that was the big ceremony for us. But probably the most notable thing for me was when the Crow Nation came, and they were the first ones to present flowers, as the Chief Plentycoo is the individual from the Crow Nation that presented the World War I unknown his war bonnet from his head, gave him his war bonnet. Or gave the World War I unknown his war bonnet, and that's on display here at the tomb in the memorial display room as well, so the public can see that.
So how was it received by the public? That's a unique opportunity to be able to place flowers and get that close. Was it received well?
By the public, there was actually, I believe there was a lot of hesitant people. A lot of people didn't think that that was something that we should allow to happen. There was from the public. A lot of people thought that this has been closed off for a reason, it's been guarded for a reason, we shouldn't change that. But there was also a very vast amount of people that were ecstatic about it. They wanted to come pay their own respects. People traveled from all over the country. I even met a few people from different places in the world that wanted to come here and pay their respects. So it was, overall, I believe it was very perceived well, but there was some hesitation from others.
So I understand you guys had to move things around a little bit to accommodate the public. You moved where you were walking. Did that work out okay for you guys?
It did. It presented its own group of challenges, though. The mat, so the side that we guard on currently is actually the back of the tomb. The front side is what you'll be looking at if you're looking up from the water fountain that's below us. So we moved the mat to the east side, the front side of the tomb, and it was right on the edge of the stairs. So about 1.5 feet to my to one side I had the tomb, and then to the other side I had a set of stairs. And in the middle of the mat was a grout line that was a little bit uneven. So walking back and forth on the mat was a balancing act, because either I fall over and I hit the tomb, or I fall over and I roll down some stairs. So it was definitely, it presented its own challenges, as well as more specifically we had the press pit set up that we set up for major events. And once we were on the south side of the mat, right by the press pit, I had cameras directly behind me, a foot behind me, just clicking shutters the entire time, video, and it got a little bit distracting, but other than that, it was more or less business as usual for us.
So when you're out there and you're the guard, and you're walking, obviously you're not having conversations with the public, but at some point there is a time you guys can go out there and mingle with the public, is that right?
On a daily basis?
Yeah, like today.
Of course. A lot of us do take that opportunity. I make it a personal goal of mine, a personal mission, to try to talk to as many people as I can, within reason, within what I can, while still keeping the mission going. Like I said earlier, I came here twice when I was younger in high school, and I left with a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of information that you can't find on Google. So I make it my mission to go outside and grab school groups or tourist groups and be like, hey, I got like 10, 15 minutes. I'll answer any questions you have, or provide a historical brief about the tomb for them. So I personally make that my mission, but a lot of other tomb guards do that as well.
Do you find that when you do have conversations with the public that they are here because they want to pay respects, or is it just curiosity? And what's your general observations on the public that comes here and what their motivations are to be here?
I think the majority of the public is here for the right reasons. They're here to pay respects to the unknowns. It's one of the major attractions of Arlington National Cemetery. It's a national shrine. It's not just 3 unknown soldiers out there. It's meant to be a shrine and a place of mourning for other people. Again, in the off chance that we have a Vietnam veteran, a World War II veteran, or a Korean War, that they had a friend that was lost and never found in combat, or a family member even, there's a sliver of a chance that that person outside is their family member, but it is a memorial for all that lost their lives during that war and were unknown.
Okay, so you're young, you're in your early 20s. What is it like to be a part of something this big? You know, this place means a lot to America, actually the entire world. What is it like to be a young guy in his 20s and playing a significant role in history?
I still get butterflies. I still come to work and I can't believe it sometimes. Like, I'm walking up in the morning and I just see the tomb out there, and it's dark out. It's just the tomb, the lights on the amphitheater keeping it lit for the guard that's outside, and that's it. And I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, this is crazy. You know, thousands of people come here, and you're put in a very weird position, especially early on, where you're talking to the public. I have the opportunity to meet foreign nationals. We have congressmen, congresswomen that come here frequently, the president, vice president, and on inauguration, we had almost all of the living previous presidents here. So I still get very taken back by it sometimes, and I spend my night times outside posting, when I'm posted outside, and I really just reminisce on it and think about it.
All right, here's something to think about. When you have your time to mingle with the public and you meet some kid, how old were you when you first came here?
15,
All right,
I believe.
You got a 15-year-old kid comes up to you today.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey, Sergeant, I'm thinking this is really cool. I'm thinking about doing what you do. What guidance would you give him, or what advice would you give him on how he can make an achievement like you've been able to do?
Go home and clean your room. Go home and clean your room. This job is very meticulous. There's a lot of attention to detail here, and a lot of us come here without that attention to detail already. I feel like if we saw a lot more soldiers that already had an exquisite attention to detail, it would help a lot for people coming through training, and it's amazing. But if you start those foundations early, it would really be beneficial in the long run. And then of course you got to join the Army. You can't join the Marine Corps to come guard the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. You can't join the Air Force. You have to join the Army. And then if you're genuinely interested in coming here, I would recommend also that you look at what specialties, what military occupations are able to come here and be a guard.
All right, last question.
Okay.
It's a doozy though.
All right.
So we're going to give you a copy of this video. We're going to give you some directions on how you can submit it to the Library of Congress across the Potomac here,
Okay.
to the Veterans History Project, if you choose to do so. That video will be here hundreds of years from now. What would you want your great-great-great-great-great-grandkids to know if they stumbled upon the video about your service to your country and what your country means to you?
Ooh. What would I want them to know? I was never perfect. We always look perfect all the time. We try to be perfect, but nobody is perfect. Nobody is. And the amount of effort that you put into something is a direct representation of what your goals are in life and where you want to be and what you want to achieve. However much effort and time you're willing to put into something is what you'll get out of it at the end. I did my best. I tried my hardest, all I could, and I've enjoyed it very much, and I always recommend joining the military. I think it's great. I enjoy that. I think it's awesome that schools push college a lot, but coming straight out of high school, but I think the military is something that a lot of high schools should push more and get awesome people into the military.
Well said. Well, on behalf of the Americans of Wartime Experience, I thank you for spending a few minutes with us today, and more importantly, thank you for your service, Jake.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure to meet you.
I appreciate it.